Today we're going to be learning about the artist Alexander Calder. He was an American artist. He was a painter who used mostly the primary colors, and also he was a sculptor. Sculptures are three-dimensional works of art like this. He mostly used metal and plastic to make his sculptures. These are some examples of his mobiles. He's very famous for making mobiles, kind of like what hangs over a baby's bed. It has to be balanced on both sides. So these are some examples of those. He also made wire sculptures, especially of faces and animals. Here you can see some fish wire sculptures and other shapes. Today we're going to be making a paper sculpture inspired by Alexander Calder. We're going to be using the primary colors just like him to create some three-dimensional paper sculptures. So here's an example of a finished sculpture. You'll have a white piece of paper and some primary color construction paper. Some of it might be scrap pieces of paper, but you can use those too. The first thing we'll do is we'll glue some shapes onto your white paper. We're using glue sticks today. That way it can dry quickly. Some of them are purple and some of them are clear. Whenever you're gluing, make sure you put glue all over the back of your shapes that you're gluing down. So first you might cut some shapes out or even use shapes that are already cut that are in your bucket for your table. And you'll glue those down to the bottom because later we're going to use Sharpies to make lines. This way you don't have so much of your paper to cover. Also, there will be some strips of paper, or you can cut your own. I'm going to show you some different folding techniques. This is called an accordion fold or a fan fold. You fold back and forth until your whole paper is folded. And when you open it, it kind of looks like letter W's or stairs. Whenever you're gluing down these elements, they're going to be sticking up. So you have to have what I call feet. I'm about to put some glue on the little feet of my sculpture. So I made my accordion fold, and now I'm going to put the feet onto the white paper. It sometimes takes a minute for it to stick, so I have to press it down, and you can see that it's sticking up off of the paper. That's what makes it a sculpture because it's 3D. You can even just take a strip of paper and give it some feet by folding them and put glue on those little feet to create like a little bridge for your sculpture. Whoop. So we'll put some glue on there and glue this down. You could do your whole paper sculpture just out of little strips of paper like this and folding it and twisting it in different ways. You just have to make sure that you hold it there while the glue dries for just a minute. Next, I'm going to show you how to cut kind of a more complicated part of a sculpture. So here I have a bigger piece of scrap paper, and I'm going to cut it into a smaller piece. I'm going to show you how to make this more complicated shape here. Alexander Calder had some sculptures in that shape. First, I'm going to fold my paper in half, and I'm going to cut the top so it's more even. Once I do that, I have my paper folded in half, and I'm going to start on the open side, like when you open a card or a book. And I'm just going to cut and curve around, and I'm going to stop before I get to the folded part of the paper, so I don't cut it all the way. I'm going to do that until I have cut the whole bottom. So I cut it and stop before I get to the fold. If you make a mistake, if you decide to make a shape like this and make a mistake, don't worry about it. Just turn your paper into something else. So here I've cut all of my little cuts, and kind of like when I did the accordion fold, I'm going to fold it back and forth. So I fold it one way, flip it over, get the next piece, fold it the other way, flip it over, take the next piece, fold it the other way, flip it over, until I've folded all of my pieces opposite ways. and then I can open it, and it should stand up by itself. I still have to give it feet though, so that I can glue it to the paper. I don't want to give all of these little pieces feet, so I'm just going to trim some of them a little bit shorter, and I'm only going to give the bigger pieces feet. Like I said, this is kind of a more complicated one. You do not have to make a piece like this. I just wanted to show you how, in case you wanted to try. And if you end up cutting things off or making some kind of strange shape, put it on your sculpture anyway. Make it interesting. So I'll figure out where I want to put all of the pieces that I'm cutting. I've got to put glue on the feet. That way it will stay. And it might take a minute for this to stick, so it might be wiggling around a little bit while I'm trying to glue other things down. Just try to take your time and hold down the feet while they dry for a second. And press everything down. So there you can see it's standing up. Oh, one of my feet came undone. Okay, I'm going to cut another strip. And this time I'm going to use my pencil to help me. I'm going to wrap my little piece of paper around my pencil to make almost like a spring or a swirl out of the paper. So when I take it off, it's swirly and stretchy like a little spring. So this is another kind of an easy one that you can do. Even whenever I make a swirly like this, I still have to give it a foot. So my little foot where I'm going to glue it down to the paper. So I'm still going to fold the bottom a little bit. That way I have somewhere to put the glue. So I'll put the glue on there. And you can stick things together. Like I've decided to stick this to my big complicated sculpture here. And if things start coming apart, just add more glue. Like my feet are popping off here. It's okay. That just means I need to add more glue. Just take your time today and don't worry about it if things start falling off or moving around. Just keep trying and keep adding more glue if you need it. And holding it together while it's drying. Next, I'm going to use a Sharpie to decorate the white part of the paper. So I'm just going to be using lines to help fill in the white area. That's why it's good at the beginning to glue some things to the bottom. That way you don't have so much space to fill with Sharpie lines. So I'm going to remind you of the steps. First, you're going to cut some shapes and glue them to the bottom. Then you can cut out some strips and different things that you want to make 3D. You can fold and twist your paper, make little feet to glue it all down, and then you're going to use Sharpie to decorate the white part.